Admiral Zephyros of the Kethvari Imperium watched through the tactical display as his scout ships transmitted their final reports. The human vessel, Odyssey's End, drifted dead in space, its hull scarred with micrometeorite impacts and radiation burns from decades of deep space travel. Half its external sensors hung dark, and structural integrity readings showed multiple hull breaches sealed with crude emergency patches. A derelict sneered Commander Vextal from his position at the tactical station. The humans sent a scrap heap to meet our armada. Their desperation is almost pitiful. Zephyros studied the readings more carefully. The Odyssey's End had been humanity's first interstellar colony ship, launched nearly a century ago when their species had barely mastered fusion propulsion. According to intelligence reports, it had been declared lost with all hands after disappearing into the Helix Nebula 40 years prior. Yet, here it was, somehow operational and broadcasting human identification codes. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "the human vessel is responding to our hails. Captain Elena Vasquez requests parley under galactic neutrality protocols." "Neutrality?" Vextal laughed, his mandibles clicking in amusement. They faced 1,200 ships of the Imperial Navy. What neutrality could possibly apply? Zephyros raised a clawed hand for silence. Something felt wrong about this scenario. The humans were known for their unpredictability, but sending a single ancient colony ship against an invasion fleet seemed beyond even their legendary recklessness. "Patch them through," he commanded. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a woman in her 50s, wearing a patched environmental suit. Her gray hair was tied back pragmatically, and her brown eyes held a curious mixture, exhaustion and determination. Behind her, Zephyros could see a bridge that looked like it had been jury-rigged a dozen times over, with exposed conduits and makeshift control panels. "Admiral Zephyros," Captain Vasquez said, her voice steady despite the static-filled transmission. "I'm here to discuss the terms of your withdrawal from human space." Vextal's laughter echoed through the bridge, but Zephyros remained silent, studying the human captain's face. "Captain," he finally replied, "you command a single damaged vessel against our entire armada. Perhaps you should consider the terms of your surrender instead." Vasquez smiled, and something in that expression made Zephyros's blood run cold. "Admiral, you're looking at this all wrong. You see a wreck. I see 40 years of research and development in the most hostile environment in the galaxy." She gestured to something off-screen, and the tactical display showed new readings from the Odyssey's End. Deep within its hull, energy signatures were spiking, not the familiar patterns of fusion reactors or antimatter containment, but something else entirely. "You see," Vasquez continued, "when we disappeared into the Helix Nebula, we weren't lost. We were learning. The nebula isn't just a stellar nursery, Admiral. It's a quantum foam region where the fundamental constants of physics become flexible." Zephyros felt his confidence beginning to waver. "Explain yourself, human. For 40 years, my people have been studying exotic matter interactions in conditions that exist nowhere else in the galaxy. We've learned to manipulate quantum vacuum fluctuations to create localized regions where space-time itself becomes malleable." Her smile widened. "Would you like a demonstration?" Before Zephyros could respond, the Odyssey's End suddenly shifted. Not through space, but through something else entirely. Reality seemed to hiccup around the human vessel, and when it stabilized, the ship appeared to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. "Quantum superposition on a macroscopic scale," Vasquez explained casually, as if discussing the weather. "We call it the helix drive. Turns out, when you exist in multiple quantum states at once, targeting you becomes problematic." Zephyros watched in growing horror as his tactical computers began displaying error messages. The Odyssey's End was showing up on sensors in 17 different locations across a light minute of space. All readings equally valid according to the ship's instruments. Open fire. Vextol shouted. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel. The Armada's weapons discharged in a brilliant display of coordinated destruction. Plasma beams, particle accelerators, and antimatter torpedoes converged on every position where the Odyssey's end appeared to be. For a moment, space itself seemed to burn. When the light faded, the human ship remained, untouched and whole. "You missed," Vasquez observed mildly. "The problem with quantum superposition is that we're never quite where you think we are. But we can observe you just fine." The Odyssey's end suddenly collapsed back into a single quantum state, directly in the center of the Kethvari formation. But now, something was different. Energy readings from the ancient colony ship were off the scale, and space around it began to distort visibly. "Vacuum metastability," Vasquez said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "When you manipulate quantum fields in specific ways, you can trigger a cascade collapse of the false vacuum. It's a localized effect mostly, but it tends to be, rather, energetic." Zephyros realized what she was describing and felt his heart stop. A false vacuum collapse would release energy levels comparable to the Big Bang itself, converting matter and energy into more stable quantum states. Even a localized collapse would. "You're bluffing," he whispered. "You'd destroy yourselves as well." "Admiral," Vasquez replied softly, "we've been dead for 40 years already. We're just ghosts, haunting a broken ship in a place that shouldn't exist. But you have families, worlds, a future. The choice is yours." The distortion around the Odyssey's end intensified, and every sensor in the Armada began screaming warnings about exotic energy buildups and space-time instabilities. Zephyros stared at the tactical display for a long moment, watching as reality itself began to fray around the human vessel. Then he activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All ships," he commanded, his voice heavy with defeat, "prepare for immediate withdrawal from human space." As the Kethvari Armada turned and jumped to hyperspace, Captain Elena Vasquez watched from her impossible bridge. The vacuum collapse slowly stabilized, and the Odyssey's end returned to normal space-time. "Think they'll be back?" asked her first officer, a man whose hair had turned white during their decades in the Helix Nebula. Vasquez shook her head. "Not for a very long time. Sometimes the best weapon isn't what you can do, it's what you can make them think you might do." She turned back to the navigation console, where impossible readings showed the path back to the Helix Nebula. "Take us home, Mr. Chen. We have work to finish." The Odyssey's end shimmered and faded from normal space, leaving only the faint echo of exotic particles and the growing legend of the ghost ship that had saved humanity with nothing more than applied theoretical physics and sheer audacity.